Hi everyone, welcome back to another episode. This is your host, David Kim.
For me, why Rwanda? My parents and I'm from Rwanda, so
I see.
originally.
You're from Rwanda.
So now I was born in Kenya and grew up in Burundi, then in the U.S., then came back here. My parents were refugees, so
I see.
we were refugees for a long time until 1994. That's when we had our Rwandan nationalities.
Do you have a Rwandan passport then?
Now I do, yeah. Since 1994, we got our passport in 1994. But
I see.
Before that, we were refugees, yes.
I mean, look at your profile. I found it very interesting. You are doing a lot of things. You wear a lot of hats. You are the author, you are the vlogger, you are launched and running a startup in Africa. Your title of your book is very interesting and catchy. My African Dream. So I'm familiar with My American Dream, but this is very interesting title. So you were raised in America, right? So you move into the exact opposite track interaction. I think it's a great idea. Think everything upside down. Yeah, you don't need to follow the herd. Please tell me about your book.
Yeah, like you said, I moved to the U.S. in 96 when I was 18, 19, and I spent 17 years in America. So most of my young adult life over there. And you're right, most of the dreams people talk about is the American dream, and which is fine. There is an American dream. I do believe in that also. But I do believe that now, well, not now, but for the last 10, 15 years, and it's increasing dramatically, there is also an African dream. I don't know how much you know about the history, but in the 90s in the region, in East Africa, there was a lot of wars. And that's where me and my sister, we left to go to the US. And then I first came back home to visit my parents in 2001. But then it's in 2008, my second visit, that I really saw the changes happening in the region. And in 2009, that's when I decided that I need to develop a project to come back to the continent and participate in this economic revolution happening on the continent. So the book is about my journey, really, my experience. And I wrote this book mostly for the younger generation of Africans, because unfortunately, even my generation, our dream was to get out of Africa. I remember clearly when I got on the plane to go to America, I thought I was gonna, I was one of the few blessed kid to be able to go to America and leave this African continent, at least the region, fighting and wars and all. I didn't think, I never thought I was going to come back. And when I came back, I met a new generation that also, some of them are trying to leave the continent, thinking that the continent does not have a lot of opportunities for them. So I wanted to first show them my experience in America, because it was a tough country to live in. It's not what people think it is, where you go there and you become rich. It's really tough. There's a lot of discrimination, racism, if you're Black or Asian or any minorities. So I wanted to share that aspect, and I also wanted to share my success in Africa, because I felt like even though I was somehow successful in America, I became even more successful in Africa. So I truly believe in the African dream.
I totally agree with you. In general, people think about the one direction, right? Everybody think about the opportunity to develop the economy, larger economy, American dream, and then everybody chase the other herd. And one thing is I found out in Africa, as I said, I already spoke to many entrepreneurs of the startup, but some of them raised a good amount of money from outside investor, and then grew the company a little bit, and then they hired the CEO, and then they left, down as a CEO, and then they went to US to study the MBA, which is quite opposite direction of other, a general case of startup in the US or Europe, right? So I can imagine, I can sympathize a lot of challenges and difficulty on ground level in running a startup in the emerging market in Africa. But also, I don't believe in one story, one single story. So your insight, having a lot of experience and studied in US and then experience in the US. So your experience, I think, is a very useful, helpful complement and help the young people in Africa think about the right direction for their future.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, every country, every continent has to control the narrative,
Yeah,
and unfortunately in Africa, we still don't control our narrative. And not only we don't control our narrative, but we still have the wrong mindset where we think by going abroad, we can get better education, we can get better opportunities outside. But especially today with the world we live in, Europe, America, well, during Trump time at least, they don't want no foreigners, especially no black foreigners. So you have to learn how to change your mindset and build opportunities where you from. You have to find, because if you think you're gonna find better opportunities outside your own communities, your own country, it's the wrong mindset, because you cannot be treated the best way and you cannot bring the best impact
totally
except
agree.
in your own community.
Agree.
So that's really what I learned. When going to America, and of course you can still succeed outside. You work hard and all, but it's not home. It's not your
Yes.
home. Those communities most of the time don't want you there. So you have to fight so many layers. But
Right.
when you fight, in your own communities, it brings you also a certain satisfaction, because
Right.
you're doing something positive for your own community. So those are all the reason why I came back. And plus I came to a crossroad in my life. I was trying to find a meaning to my own life. I was
Yes.
after so many years in America, I was like, okay, I've done everything I wanted to do. And then there's a ceiling. When you're in a foreign country, there's always a ceiling for foreigners to some point. There's a ceiling.
Yeah.
And yes, some, you can crack a little bit the ceiling, but there's always somebody who's going to remind you, hey, you're not real American, or you're not real this, you're not real that,
Agreed.
So I came to this crossroad and I was like, you know what, it's time for me to come back home and do something positive for my continent and be part of this positive wave happening in Africa.
Totally
and I think
agree.
everybody should do the same.
Let's get it started by telling the audience a little bit about yourself and background, or how you came to set up and run your business in Rwanda.
Briefly, my name is Henri Nyakarundi. I'm originally from Rwanda. I was born in Kenya. I grew up as a refugee with my parents as a refugee in Burundi. Moved to the US in '96, mostly for school, but I started my first 10 businesses in the US. And then in 2009, I decided it was time for me to come back on the continent. I was a little bit tired of being in the US, and I wanted to participate in this African economic revolution. So in 2013, I came back to develop A.R.E.D. And A.R.E.D, briefly, what A.R.E.D is today, it's a deep tech company. What we do, we develop technology to connect the unconnected in rural areas, semi-urban area, and refugee camps using hardware and software.
Problem and the mission statement, the website and your pitch and LinkedIn, which is said A.R.E.D is a hardware as a service platform to help facilitate access to the digital application for low-income people, and multi-service digital edge platform help to bridge the digital gap in Africa. I can understand on high level. Would you please explain a little bit more into what problem are you solving? What did you come up with the business idea?
Yeah, I mean, on the very simple level, there's still 70% of the population in Africa that are still not connected to the digital world. When people talk about connection, they only talk about internet. But when for me, when I talk about connectivity, I talk about access to digital applications. You can access it different ways. But yes, there's a huge portion of the population that are still not connected to this digital world. And why? For four key reasons. Number one, the internet is very expensive in Africa. And we're dealing with low-income people, so most people cannot afford internet. The second challenge is we have an energy problem. We can't talk about connectivity without talking about energy, The third problem we have is digital literacy. There's still a huge portion of the population that, because they're not connected, they don't know how to use a smartphone, so on and so forth. So there has to be a digital literacy program. And most of the smartphones on the market today are low-end smartphones. So even if you have internet on your phone, you cannot download a lot of apps, a lot of videos, so on and so forth on your phone because of how limited your smartphone is. So this is what our technology addressed. It addressed all this problematic. And why Edge? Edge basically is the way the internet works today is a bunch of data centers around the world, big, huge data centers owned by 2-3 companies. I mean, at least the biggest one, that store all this internet information. And there's wired or wireless cable connecting from the data center to the end user. I'm really making it very simple to the end user. So when you access Facebook, when you go to a Facebook app, you're accessing the information from a data center somewhere, mostly in the US or in Europe, so on and so forth. What we decided to do is, why not build this mini servers, because data centers is a bunch of mini servers that is centralized. Why not build a distributed or decentralized mini server closer to the user to minimize the cost of access to those applications and content and so on? And that's really what Edge technology is. It's pretty much building a mini server closer to your user. And we use Wi-Fi spectrum for the user to access those information.
So basically, I mean, I understand from the explanation, you are helping with the infrastructure operator, right? Telco companies who runs internet network in the market, as well as you help the service quality of customer, user who are using this internet. Is that correct to say that?
I wouldn't go as far as managing. We basically providing last mile connectivity. There's different layers to connectivity, right? Like I said, there's the data center, and then there's a high-speed bent fiber that goes around the continents and all that. Then there's the distribution stations. But us, we last mile. We are last mile connectivity. We have the connectivity that reaches to the user via Wi-Fi.
Understood.
And that's really what the best way to define.
So in terms of serving the pain point, whether it is of the infrastructure, telco infrastructure operator, or the customer user, or what is your business model? How you make the money?
Yeah, so we're a B2B company. What we provide, because we provide last mile technology, we work mostly with NGOs and telecom companies and plug our technology into the existing value chains. For example, NGOs use our technology mostly to provide last mile connectivity in refugee camps, in low-income rural communities, but they also use our kiosk technology for job creation and providing phone charging services in those communities. We have two key products, hardware products. We have the mini server, and then we have the solar kiosk, where the mini server is built in within our solar kiosk. For telecos, it's a little bit different. They already have a kiosk network, so they use our technology to optimize the existing kiosk infrastructure and make them smarter with our technology. So those are our two different clientele, but the concept is the same. It's providing last mile connectivity and better data gathering on the last mile aspect. Collecting the data of who's connected, how many people connected, so on and so forth.
Who was your first customer? How did you approach your first customer? And then did they understand, love your ideas from the beginning?
Well, the biggest challenge was definitely not the customer. It was developing the technology. It took
Okay.
us close to 6 years to develop this technology, because again, when you do something innovative that no one, or you don't know anybody else that has done it, you do a lot of mistakes, you make a lot of mistakes, and you test, it fails. It took us 6 years to develop the hardware and software platform. Now, on the customer side, yeah, there's always educational components that you have to do, but customers, especially young customers, are very easy to pick up on technology. You don't need to really do some major training for customers. Most of our customers are between 18 to 35, about 80% of our customers. So they're very quick on picking technology, understanding how it works, so on and so forth. So we didn't have a big challenge on the customer side. The challenge was on the technology development side. And our second challenge was on monetization of the technology. Because in Africa, you're dealing with low margins. It's not like in America where you can make a lot of money by providing one service, because the margins can be much higher, because the purchasing power in America is much higher. In Africa, it's not the same. Right. You have low purchasing power. So you have to have a very innovative business model, number one. Number two, you have to have a platform that allow you to generate revenue for multiple revenue streams to minimize the risk of losing one revenue streams that will destroy your company. And the third thing is in Africa is a very fragmented market. So how do you expand across Africa, if you don't have a lot of money? And again, even if you have a lot of money, you want to be profitable at some point, because if you're not profitable and you're not able to raise money, then your business is going to die. I've seen it happen plenty of times. So there's much more challenges on the continent in this type of business than any other continent. But that's where the opportunity is, because what we're doing is we're building an infrastructure that does not exist. So it's a very long-term ball game. We're really playing the long-term game right now, because we know as the economy evolves, as things change, as things gets better, you need whoever is going to be the first to build those infrastructure, whether it's in last mile connectivity, in fintech, in renewable energy, so on and so forth, will be the winners of tomorrow, for sure.
Yeah, I totally agree. In the 1990s, it is already 20 or 25 years ago, I worked in this emerging market in Asia, including Thailand, Vietnam, China. Those days, those countries are very, very different from today. But I was actually I had a doubt about the potential of the economy, because I have observed a lot of issues and challenges on the ground every day. I was a quite negative person, but we have observed they grew quickly. They made a huge, incredible achieved incredible change and growth over those years. So I believe in the long term, I don't have any objection or different idea about the long-term potential of Africa.
No, I do want to say, it's like any economy, right? I think Africa today is what Asia was 30, 40 years ago, right? Especially China. I remember reading, last 10 years, researching and reading about how China economy grew so fast. But in the beginning, nobody believed in that economy. Nobody thought. True. But the ones that really invested early on, really benefited from their fruits of labor today. I remember reading the Alibaba story and how he struggled to raise money and the rejection he was getting. Nobody believed that e-commerce will work in China. Look at him now. So this is what Africa is today. And
I agree.
And what I've learned also is most people only believe in what they see, not what they hear. And that's why not everybody benefit
Yeah.
from economic empowerment and so on and so forth. So yeah, I mean that's pretty much what Africa is today.
Yeah, I totally agree. And one of the guests on my podcast, she raised pretty good money every round from the international investor for her venture. I asked a reason, what is her secret to convince the investor every time. She said at the China story. You should not miss that opportunity again in Africa, because if we talk about all the rational logics about the issues and challenges on ground in Africa, it's not easy to defend, right? I mean, having argument with international investors who are very familiar with the process, right? Also, it's a process in the developed economy. So that's I think good point and rational to argue or convince the international investor about African.
Yeah, I mean, that's the challenge, and unfortunately, also our internal ecosystem is not conducive for investment in tech and fintech. Well, it depends on the countries, of course, but in general, a lot of the talents, African entrepreneur talented, don't get the proper access to funding internally. I mean, I can speak also for myself. So it's challenging. I mean, again, you know, it's one of those things where it's definitely not easy. Plus, the demand for funding is much higher than the supply. So the investors, including international investors, take advantage of that. They also, you know, so you have to be very, very strategic and very strong-minded when you deal with investor as an African entrepreneur, because you can easily get, you know, I call it bamboozle. You can easily get really played and lose your company, and it happens. Lose your control of the company, so on and so forth. So it is a struggle, man. It is a tough struggle, and that's really part of the struggle. I try to help other African entrepreneurs in that struggle, because unfortunately, in general, we don't get the support of our leaders yet. We still benefiting foreign companies and not benefiting local companies. You know, we're giving the red carpet treatment on foreign companies, and we're not really empowering local talent. And you see local talent starting businesses and ending up working for those foreign companies, which breaks my heart, man. But I think, as I said, it will be up to us, and especially up to the next generation, to change their narrative and change that structure that is happening today. But I'm very optimistic. I don't want to sound like I'm negative. It's just the reality. I mean, every continent, every country that goes through a change has to go through that change. So, you know, at some point we'll wake up for sure.
Yes. I think having background in US and then move to the Africa, running a startup, may have a little bit different, unique experience and perspective for other African entrepreneurs. So how would you describe the complexity of issues and challenges running a startup in Africa versus popular narrative of great long-term potential with 1.54 billion consumer on the ground? I mean, how do you describe that potential?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest challenge, well, there's a few biggest challenge, but the biggest challenge is the African market is very fragmented. So even when you go and expand to a neighboring country, the culture, the laws, the policies can be very different and varies per country to country. So it's very complex to expand, and you cannot expand with your traditional business model that you do in the West or in the US. The second challenge is the mindset. We still have in Africa this self-hate culture. Well, I won't say culture, but mindset. And I think that's the heritage of our colonialism but also something that we carried on and is very difficult to change. And what do I mean by that? Yeah, us in general, us as African, and it happens to me plenty of time, we trust foreign technology, foreign businessmen or women more than we trust ourselves. So when you come to Africa, you see a lot of, even in government, you see advisors that are foreign advisors to government officials and not local advisors, which I don't understand. You know, you have companies that hire white people as CEO to facilitate them to get deals on contracts. So, and China went through that also in the beginning. I remember reading about that in Asia also. So again, this is what's happening today. So as an African, you have to prove, you have to work 3-4 times much harder than if you a foreigner doing the same thing. And that's the sad part about this. But yeah, those are the key challenges: the mindset, the fragmentation of the marketplace, but also the poor value chain of entrepreneurship. Because if you're doing business in rural areas, in America, for example, business are very segmented. So let's say, I'll give you a perfect example. If you develop a technology, if you develop a product in America, you can find what they call a co-packer. A co-packer can put their products together for you. You can find a distributor. A distributor will help you distribute your product. You can find a transportation company to transport your goods from point A to point B. In Africa, that ecosystem, part of it does not exist. So a lot of businesses find themselves doing a lot of that, trying to control a lot of that value chain. For example, in the solar business, you find solar company developing the technology, implementing the technology, distributing the technology to the customer. And that's why most of the solar companies in Africa are not profitable. They're losing money because they're trying to control the whole value chain, and it's not their fault. But there's better ways to do it, though. I feel like they should do it a little bit different. Instead of trying to do it themselves, they should fund companies that can fill that gap and then let them be on their own, instead of trying to control that whole value chain. But yeah, those are the challenges in Africa.
Yeah, I totally agree. I use my favorite analogy a lot. To describe the same situation for business. Even the greatest mountain climber, he needs a chauffeur to climb the Mountain Everest, right? The chauffeur is local people. If you think that you know everything and then you act to work by yourself, I don't think it makes it success. Same, the other way around is true. Local people should work and leverage people from the other market and leverage their experience, work together, create the synergy. I think that's the key, right? But reality, I understand that reality, they don't listen to each other. That's the problem.
Yeah, listen, trust also. We don't trust each other. We don't empower each other. We tend to, we don't buy from each other also, which is a problem. You can't build an economy if the people from that country don't buy products and services from businesses of that country, and they buy from outside. There's a perfect example. Now we have like cell phone companies, local cell phone, like in Rwanda, we have a manufacturing of cell phones. There's some countries now that manufacture their own cell phone. Well, there's still competition, techno is here, so on and so forth, but we need to have this culture of, we need to support our own. We need to support our own. That's how you build economy. Right. I love Israel, for example. Right. When I look at Israel and some smaller communities, they tend to really understand that, the money has to circulate within the community to build that community economically.
Circular economy, right?
Yeah, circular economy, but you have to have an internal economy. You have to promote your own.
Yes. Yeah.
If I'm developing a technology, right? I did a vlog about that. Governments are usually the number one buyers of a country's. The number one spender in any country. Government is number one. Are spending money in different things. Well, if that government buying solution, technology, services, mostly from outside, how are you going to develop that country's economy? It's not possible. You need to build internal capacity. You need to build internal capacity at
Absolutely.
all levels of the economy, not just in one or two levels, at all levels. That's the only way you're going to make it.
So that's one of the reasons behind my new initiative, running a podcast, writing a book about Africa. Being an Asian people, I never been to Africa, in fact.
Oh, you definitely should. Well, I guess now you can't, but when things open up, please do.
Right. I hope so.
It has changed a lot for sure.
What can we expect from you this year, and what is your end game, African dream? Can you share with us?
Yeah, this year is very simple. We'll be in 2 more countries by the end of this year, and then we're closing our first round. Well, we'll be closing our first round of funding that we just started building for our expansion plan. I mean, we've been able to bootstrap this company for the last 7 years. Now to scale up much faster, we decided to go and raise capital in the market with a focus as in the US because the type of technology we've developed is deep tech technology is not well understood in Africa. So it's well understood in the US. So we decided to look for funding over there. But those are the 2 main things we're planning to do. I mean, COVID kind of slowed down a few things, but we don't want to use that as an excuse. We need to, find a way to speed up the process and catch up the time we lost due to COVID. Yeah, they intertwine. I mean, I breathe and live entrepreneurship every day.
I see.
But the game is simple. I mean, I have to continue building my company. I have other projects on the pipeline in the agribusiness. But my second focus is to empower, and I've been doing that already, is just to continue empower other entrepreneurs, especially educate them on the reality on the ground, how to raise money, because a lot of time we don't share the right information. So I just want to be a tool for others to help them, especially the next generation, to help them achieve their dream. I'm a true believer that being selfish as anyone is not the right way. If you truly empower others, then you will live a fulfilled life. And I've seen it, I've experienced it. The more people I help, the more fulfilled I am personally in my life. And
Absolutely.
The better I feel about myself. So this is what I'm dedicating my life to be, is to empower others and help others that want to be helped, of course. And that's really what the end game is.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah.
Thank you so much for taking time, sharing the interesting story. Yeah, I really enjoyed the conversation, and let's just stay in touch.
No, for sure, David. Thanks for the invite, and good work, man. Keep it up, and looking forward to check out some of your podcasts coming up, for sure.
Sure.